Captain Vrell'moth of the 17th Stellar Fleet stood before the viewport of his observation vessel, mandibles clicking softly, in what could only be described as profound existential confusion. His 3 eye stalks swiveled simultaneously toward the floating blue marble below, then back to the human representative who had just finished speaking. She sat across from him in the negotiation chamber, legs crossed, holding something dark and steaming in a ceramic vessel that the translation matrix vaguely identified as coffee. She was smiling. This, Vrell'moth had learned over the past 18 rotations, was rarely a good sign. You want to know what humans consider weapons? Captain Vrell'moth's translator converted his subsonic rumbling into standard galactic, though it struggled with the undertone of dread that accompanied his words. The human woman nodded. Her name was Dr. Amelia Hartfield, and she represented Earth's combined military advisory council. She was small by Vrell'moth's standards, barely reaching his secondary breathing apparatus, but her presence somehow filled the entire chamber. This, too, he had learned, was distressingly common among her species. Yes, Captain, Amelia said, setting down her coffee with deliberate slowness. You asked us to provide a comprehensive list. You know, for the interspecies treaty negotiation, you wanted to understand what our civilization considers a weapon, before you determined if we're a threat level to warrant continued observation. Vrell'moth's translation matrix absolutely refused to render the particular inflection of amusement in her voice. He assumed it was probably significant. We have reviewed your military specifications, he said carefully. Your kinetic projectile weapons, your thermal detonation devices, your directed energy systems. These we understand. We have classified them accordingly. Your defensive capabilities are noted as formidable but not exceptional among the species we have encountered. Right, Amelia said, and she was definitely smiling wider now. But that's just the obvious stuff. You asked what humans consider weapons, and I took that question pretty literally. She placed a data tablet on the negotiation table between them. Vrell'moth reached across with his primary manipulator and activated it. What he saw made his eye stalks retract sharply backward, a gesture that translated roughly as aggressive alarm. This list is extensive, he managed. Oh, this is just page 1, Amelia said casually. Page 1 is going to take a while, though. Vrell'moth began reading aloud, his translator working overtime, its synthesized voice developing an almost audible strain. Item 1, a sock filled with sand. Effective impact weapon, deployable within seconds, concealable, yields approximately 37% of the striking force of a standard military bludgeon, while maintaining superior maneuverability in close-quarters combat. Notes indicate effectiveness increases by 0.03% for every additional grain of sand. He looked up from the tablet, his 3 primary eyes now focused directly on Amelia. This is a filled sock. Yep, Amelia confirmed, taking another sip of coffee. Keep going. Item 2. A rolled newspaper. Effective against targets ranging from 0.5 meters to 2 meters. Psychological impact on morale of the opponent often exceeds actual physical trauma, noted as particularly devastating when combined with disappointed facial expressions. Vrell'moth's translator stuttered slightly. This appears to be paper. Compressed paper. Paper's great, Amelia agreed. Very versatile. The Galactic Federation captain pressed forward, his voice now tinged with what the translator matrix defined as mounting horror. Item 3. A piece of string, deployable in numerous configurations. Can be used for restraint, strangulation, tripwire applications, psychological intimidation when snapped menacingly, or simply left on an opponent's floor to generate startle responses leading to falls and subsequent injuries. The notes here say, his eye stalks quivered. The notes say that the weapon's effectiveness is severely underestimated by non-humans. String is incredibly useful, Amelia said. Humans have built entire civilizations, partly on our ability to tie things together. It's not just a weapon, it's more of a multi-tool. Vrell'moth took a moment to recalibrate his audio receptors. Surely he had misheard. Captain, he began, his mandibles clicking rapidly, the sign of severe psychological distress among his species. Perhaps we should focus on the clearly legitimate military weapons. There seems to be some confusion about the definition. No, this is the point, Amelia said, leaning forward. You asked what humans consider weapons. Just weapons. No qualifier. So I'm giving you the list. There's more. She gestured to the tablet. Vrell'moth, with the resigned bearing of someone about to witness something deeply troubling, continued reading. Item 4. A pillow. Effective for blunt force trauma. The efficiency of this weapon increases dramatically when multiple pillows are employed, particularly if thrown in rapid succession. Additionally noted as a psychological weapon due to its association with comfort, targets become confused and emotionally compromised when attacked with pillows, leading to reduced combat effectiveness. Classic. Amelia nodded approvingly. Next, item 5. A potato. Apparently, a potato. He looked at the tablet again, as if hoping it would recant what he was reading. A simple starch-based vegetable. Thrown with sufficient force, it can cause orbital trauma. When frozen, its effectiveness increases by 23%. When boiled and left on a hot surface, it can be used to create steam-based weapons with scalding potential. And then there is... He paused, his vocal organs producing sounds of protest. The section on potato-based psychological warfare. Humans have a lot of opinions about potatoes, Amelia explained. It's actually a significant cultural artifact across multiple civilizations. Vrell'moth continued, now reading faster, as if speed might somehow make the content less absurd. Item 6. A spatula. Item 7. Absolutely any chair. Item 8. Water, but specifically cold water, because of the shock response in targets. Item 9. The concept of dad jokes, which apparently can be psychologically weaponized to create emotional discomfort in opponents, leading to impaired judgment. Item 10. A hairbrush, a toothbrush, a shoe, another shoe, a book. Oh, apparently not just a book, but specifically books about philosophy or dense scientific concepts that can be weaponized through aggressive knowledge transfer. He set the tablet down slowly. This list, Vrell'moth said quietly, continues for quite some time. 73 pages, Amelia confirmed cheerfully. And that's just the initial domestic items category. We haven't gone to the section on kitchen equipment, sports equipment, furniture, garden tools, or my personal favorite, the extended category on why literally everything in a bathroom can be converted to hostile applications. This is insanity, Vrell'moth muttered, his translator struggling to convey the exact tone of his existential horror. Surely your species does not actually consider a hairbrush a weapon in formal military doctrine. No, Amelia laughed, a sound that Vrell'moth's audio sensors interpreted as both cheerful and vaguely threatening. Our formal military doctrine doesn't mention hairbrushes, but ask any soldier who's ever been in an actual conflict what they've used to defend themselves or hurt an opponent, and they'll tell you that anything becomes a weapon if you're creative enough and motivated enough. That's kind of the human thing. We're resource managers. Vrell'moth's mandibles clicked rhythmically, a Vrell'moth equivalent of nervous processing. I must clarify, he said slowly. When you say that humans become creative about weaponizing household items, are you suggesting this happens frequently? Oh, constantly, Amelia said, but not in the way you're probably thinking. Humans don't go around traditionally weaponizing potatoes in everyday situations. It's more about understanding that in an emergency, adaptation is survival. Any human military commander can tell you that the best soldiers aren't the ones with the most sophisticated gear. They're the ones who can take what they have, which might be nothing but a sock and sand and sheer determination, and still accomplish their objective. She leaned back in her chair studying the Vrell'moth captain with an expression of serene confidence that somehow managed to be more unsettling than any threat. That's actually why I wanted to give you this list, she continued. You're trying to determine if Earth is a threat. And the thing about humans is, we don't need your weapons classifications to be threatening. We're threatening because we can make a threat out of anything. We're threatening because we adapt. We're threatening because we don't have a natural predator. So we learn to be our own predators, and then we learn to stop that, and then we learn to be excellent at both simultaneously, depending on the situation. Vrell'moth processed this statement for several long moments, his eye stalks still retracted in alarm. "This list," he finally said, "does it include items such as the contents of a garbage disposal unit?" Amelia grinned. "Eaton 42. Right between ice cubes and the concept of social humiliation as a destabilizing force." "I see," Vrell'moth said quietly. He stood up, his towering frame causing Amelia to tilt her head back just slightly to maintain eye contact. This small gesture, this easy comfort in proximity to a being that outmassed her by several hundred kilograms, somehow made him more nervous than anything she had said. "I believe I need to reconsider our threat assessment. Perhaps we might continue this tomorrow. I find that I require significant time to process this information." "Of course, Captain," Amelia said graciously, standing as well. "I actually brought along a secondary list anyway. Items that specifically become more dangerous when combined. Just for when you're ready." Vrell'moth's eye stalks dilated slightly. "There is a combination list." "Oh yes. Much more interesting actually. Humans are excellent at systems thinking. Give us 2 harmless things, and we'll find the 17 ways they become significantly more dangerous together. Give us a minute of time and a reasonable workspace, and we'll reorganize your threat parameters entirely." As Amelia gathered her materials and prepared to leave the negotiation chamber, Vrell'moth stood silently, processing what had just occurred. He had intended this meeting to be brief and professional, a simple matter of cross-referencing military capabilities and establishing mutual understanding. Instead, he had been introduced to the concept that an entire species considered a sock to be a legitimate weapon. He looked at his own hands, his primary manipulator flexing thoughtfully. How many household items did the Vrell'moth have that they had never considered in any combat capacity? How many potential applications existed that they had simply overlooked because they had always relied on their superior technology? "Captain," one of his bridge officers communicated through the internal network, "will we be escalating our threat assessment of the human species?" Vrell'moth watched Amelia leave through the chamber doors, that serene expression of confidence still evident on her face. "Yes," he said finally, "we will, significantly, inform the 17th Fleet that we are elevating Earth's classification from monitored species to proceed with extreme caution. And Lieutenant, run a full diagnostic on our household sanitation systems. Apparently they may constitute weaponry we were not previously aware of." As Vrell'moth returned to the viewport, watching Earth turn slowly below them, a thought occurred to him. Amelia had said something about the list continuing for 73 pages. He had assumed this was exaggeration, or perhaps a translation error. He accessed the data tablet again and scrolled to the absolute end of the document. The file size indicated approximately 247 pages. Vrell'moth's translation matrix produced a sound that might have been a sigh, if Vrell'moth were capable of biological sighing. Instead, it manifested as a low harmonic resonance from his vocal apparatus that his bridge officers recognized as profound concern. The next morning, or what passed for morning on a vessel operating on Galactic Standard Time, Captain Vrell'moth found himself reviewing the complete 247-page document with growing unease. His 3 eye stalks had barely left the data screen during the entire night cycle. His secondary staff had taken to checking on him every 30 minutes, concerned that prolonged exposure to human threat documentation was causing psychological deterioration. What they did not understand was that Vrell'moth was not experiencing deterioration. He was experiencing enlightenment. Horrifying, perspective-shattering enlightenment. Item 112. He read aloud to his assembled command staff, his voice carrying the weight of someone delivering catastrophic news. A rolled-up newspaper combined with a commanding voice and a disappointed expression, designated as the parental weapon system. Effectiveness. Rating variable but potentially devastating to psychological stability and confidence of target. Notes indicate that humans raised by practitioners of this weapon system often spend decades in psychological recovery. Follow-up documentation suggests that the psychological impact increases if the weapon is deployed by someone the target considers an authority figure. His first officer, Commander Zithnek, swiveled his sensory appendages toward Vrell'moth with visible distress. "Captain, are you suggesting that humans weaponize parenting?" "Not weaponize," Vrell'moth corrected grimly. "Apparently it is simply an inherent application. Dr. Hartfield's notes here indicate that this weapon system is deployed universally across human civilization, often without conscious awareness on the part of the operator." He scrolled further, his mandibles clicking with increasing rhythm. Item 137 through 154 comprise the guilt weaponization category. Humans can apparently create such profound psychological distress in each other by simply reminding them of past failures, disappointed expectations, and perceived obligations that targets often voluntarily comply with hostile requests. The documentation notes that this particular weapon system has been refined over thousands of years and is often deployed by individuals emotionally bonded to the target, making resistance significantly more difficult. "This is psychological warfare," Commander Zithnek said, his vocal organs producing harmonics of alarm. This is not a legitimate weapons classification." "And yet," Vrell'moth responded, pulling up a subsection of the document, "the human military establishment has classified all of these in their comprehensive threat assessment manual. They call it understanding adversarial tactics. It appears humans do not separate their household combat applications from their formal military considerations. To them, a weapon is a weapon, regardless of its origin or traditional purpose." He stood and began pacing before the viewport, his massive frame casting shadows across the bridge. "Furthermore," he continued, "I have discovered that humans possess an entire category of weapons they classify as words." "Words, Commander?" "Sounds produced by their vocal apparatus. They have spent considerable effort cataloging how specific combinations of sounds can reduce other humans to emotional collapse. They call certain word combinations insults, criticisms, statements of fact that are psychologically devastating, and my personal favorite, the thing your mother said about your life choices." "Surely this is exaggeration," another officer ventured. "I thought so as well," Vrell'moth replied. "So I accessed some of their historical documentation. Did you know that humans have fought wars partially motivated by insults? One of their historical conflicts was partially triggered by someone calling another person's hat inadequate. Another was motivated by perceived disrespect. They will literally organize their entire military infrastructure around emotional offense." He pulled up new data on the central display screen. "But here is what troubled me most," he said quietly. "I cross-referenced their historical records with their weapons documentation, and I discovered something. Humans are not only creative about weaponizing objects and words, they have also weaponized time. They have weaponized silence. They have weaponized the simple act of refusing to acknowledge someone's existence. They call this ignoring someone or giving someone the silent treatment. The psychological impact, according to their own military psychological warfare documentation, is comparable to moderate physical trauma." Commander Zithnek moved closer to the viewport, staring down at Earth with new apprehension. "Are you suggesting," the commander said slowly, "that human civilization operates under constant threat from household items, emotional manipulation, and conceptual weapons they can produce from nothing but intention and social agreement?" "I am suggesting," Vrell'moth said, "that human civilization does not operate under threat from these things. They operate by accepting these things as normal. It is baseline for them. A human child is raised understanding that a parent's disappointment is a weapon, that a friend's silence is a weapon, that the wrong words at the wrong time can cause permanent damage. They have normalized warfare so completely that they do not even recognize it as such when it occurs within their social structures." He turned from the viewport to face his command staff. "And then," he continued, "when they need to engage in actual conflict with external threats, they simply apply the same principle. They take whatever is available, and they find a way to make it effective. It is not a flaw in their thinking. It is a feature. They are adaptable because their civilization requires adaptation at every level of social interaction." One of the junior officers, an ambitious young Vrell'moth named Mektel, raised his primary appendage, hesitantly. "Captain, I have a question," If humans weaponize everything, including social concepts and time and words, then what prevents human civilization from simply destroying itself? Vrell'moth's 3 eye stalks all focused on the junior officer simultaneously, and for a moment, the bridge fell into profound silence. I asked Dr. Hartfield precisely that question, approximately 6 hours ago, Vrell'moth finally said. She asked me what I thought kept the Vrell'moth civilization from destroying itself. When I responded that we have advanced moral philosophy, sophisticated ethical frameworks, and thousands of years of cultural development emphasizing peaceful cooperation, she smiled, and she said, "Yeah. Humans have that too. We're just honest about the fact that we're also organized around competitive frameworks. We don't pretend the weapons don't exist. We acknowledge them, and then we have debates about whether to use them. The fact that most humans choose not to most of the time is actually kind of remarkable when you think about it." He accessed the data tablet again, scrolling through the extensive documentation. I then asked her why she had presented this complete weapons list to us at all. If human civilization is actually somewhat stable despite this universal weaponization potential, why reveal it to a Galactic Federation observer vessel? Why not maintain the fiction that humans are simply a peaceful developing species? Vrell'moth paused dramatically. She said, "Because honesty is better diplomacy than pretense. You were going to figure it out anyway. Every civilization does. And I wanted you to understand that we're not threatening because we have weapons hidden in our kitchens. We're not dangerous because we can turn a pencil into a tool of harm. We're dangerous because we're aware of what we are, and we choose not to be. Most of the time, that's the real threat assessment you need, not what we can do. What we could do but don't. That's harder to defend against than any weapon." Commander Zifnek processed this statement, his vocal organs producing a long harmonic sound that the translation matrix rendered as something between resignation and grim admiration. "So the human species has essentially voluntarily limited its own destructive potential," the commander said. "Out of choice." Apparently, Vrell'moth confirmed, though Dr. Hartfield did note that this limitation varies significantly based on circumstance and that humans are far from perfect at maintaining this restraint. She also mentioned that human ethics are something of an ongoing debate, and that the existence of this weapons list is actually part of that debate. Some humans want other humans to be aware of how weaponizable their world is. They want awareness without application. He returned to his command chair, settling his massive frame carefully into the structure designed for Vrell'moth physiology. "I have made a decision," he announced. "We will classify Earth as a stable paradox civilization, capable of extraordinary harm, possessing distributed weaponization potential throughout their entire social and physical infrastructure, yet maintaining functional, peaceful societies through what appears to be conscious choice and social agreement. This is unusual. This is noteworthy. And this," he added with what might have been described as approval if Vrell'moth were capable of such emotions, "this is genuinely interesting." The bridge fell silent except for the ambient hum of ship systems. "Captain," Commander Zifnek said carefully, "what will we report to the 17th Fleet?" Vrell'moth's eye stalks rotated thoughtfully, looking back toward Earth, where Dr. Amelia Hartfield was presumably engaging in ordinary human daily activities, making breakfast, communicating with colleagues, possibly threatening someone with a rolled newspaper, though Vrell'moth understood this was less common in modern human civilization than it had been in earlier historical periods. "We will report," Vrell'moth said slowly, "that Earth's civilization poses no immediate threat to the Galactic Federation, provided we maintain diplomatic relations with the understanding that humans are far more aware of their own potential for chaos than most species we have encountered. We will recommend establishing formal protocols for interaction with human military advisors, and we will suggest," he added with what his vocal apparatus rendered as dark humor, "that the Federation Council take future human diplomatic initiatives very seriously indeed. A civilization that openly catalogues what it could do while choosing restraint is either dangerously naive or dangerously intelligent. Possibly both." "Very well, Captain," Commander Zifnek said. "Shall I prepare the formal report?" "In a moment," Vrell'moth replied. "First, I believe I should schedule another meeting with Dr. Hartfield. I have additional questions about her civilization's threat assessment protocols. Certainly, Captain. What specifically do you wish to discuss? Vrell'moth smiled, a gesture that required his mandibles to position themselves in a configuration his own species found somewhat unsettling when performed without clear emotional context. I wish to inquire, he said, about what humans consider the most dangerous weapon of all. Based on the pattern I am observing, I suspect it will not be kinetic or thermal or even psychological in traditional terms. I suspect it will be something profoundly simple that we have collectively overlooked. He pulled up a specific section of the document and highlighted it with a gesture of his primary manipulator. Look at item 231, he instructed Commander Zithnak. The commander moved closer to the display screen, his sensory appendages focusing on the text. His entire body language shifted, eye stalks retracting, vocal apparatus producing sounds of concern. It simply says, Commander Zithnak read aloud. The human capacity for hope, rating, unquantifiable, threat level, existential. Notes, humans will pursue impossible objectives, overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and achieve victory conditions that no logical species would even attempt based on this single psychological factor. Do not underestimate the human capacity to believe they can accomplish something, because statistically speaking, they often do. Silence filled the bridge. What, Commander Zithnak said very carefully, does one do about hope as a weapon? I, Vrell'moth replied, have absolutely no idea, which is precisely why I need to speak with Dr. Hartfield again. I suspect she will find my confusion endlessly entertaining. Below them, Earth continued its ancient rotation around its star, unaware that it had just fundamentally altered how an entire Galactic Federation viewed the concept of weapons, danger and the mysterious nature of a species that could catalogue its own potential for destruction, while somehow maintaining civilization in spite of it. In her office, thousands of kilometers below, Dr. Amelia Hartfield reviewed the communication request from Captain Vrell'moth's vessel. The message was simple. Captain requests follow-up meeting. Topic: the most dangerous weapon humans possess. We have reached page 231 of your documentation and require clarification. She smiled to herself, took a long sip of her coffee, and began preparing her response. Some conversations, she thought, were worth having, and some species, once they actually understood what humans were, made for surprisingly interesting diplomatic partners. After all, any civilization willing to be honest about its own potential for chaos deserved at least a chance at understanding.